And here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be normal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. It's orange!
Oh my God!
Decollage! Put that in the big bag, Jingle.
343 unfolds to go. Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This is meant to be igniting the flare, correct?
Yikes! Keep that. We don't need any.
Welcome in, everyone, to another NSF stream. Tonight, we are looking at a Falcon 9 standing at Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral. And our host, Gene Rowley, for tonight's Thuraya 4-NGS launch in just under an hour. Joining me tonight is the one and only EJ. EJ, how are you doing tonight? You're busy tonight, aren't you?
Oh, I'm all over the place, Gene. Yeah, it's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Coming right off another great show. In the field tonight, the camera's views that you're going to be seeing are coming from Max Evans and Dee Wise, both at the press site tonight, working their magic on the cameras. And out in the field tonight, we have the one and only Julia Bergeron, who's going to be telling us all about this booster, the weather on site, and everything else. Julia, how are you tonight?
Well, good evening, Gene. I am well. It is a beautiful, somewhat chilly for Floridians here on the Space Coast for launch of 2025, and I'm excited.
Well, I know it's cool out there. We talked about that a little bit earlier, and the weather is clear, though, so we're looking good tonight. Behind the scenes, we got a whole host of people. We've got the normal button pushers and the people that make all of this happen. Producing tonight is Jay Keegan. Thank you, Jay, for being in the room there. And then also a couple other folks that are working with Jay. And again, we can't do this without them. Tonight's launch is the launch of 2025. They picked the A team, right, EJ? I would say that they picked the A team, or we were just the only ones available to do this. Right?
You know, I'm gonna pick the former, over the latter there. And I love it when a plan comes together.
Yeah, I agree. It's a lot of fun. We love doing these. This one has been delayed a long time. We'll get into that in a little bit when we talk about the payload for this and why the delays and so on. Julie, I'm going to you so we can talk a little more about this launch of this Falcon 9. And I keep saying Thuraya. I think that's how you say it. The NGS actually stands for Next Generation Satellite. But let's talk about the booster. Julia, we've got booster 1073 launching for its 20th time. Tell us about the history of this thing.
Oh my goodness. Another booster about to hit 20, which is pretty amazing. This booster started out, believe it or not, with a Starlink. And normally our boosters don't seem to start with Starlinks, but we also had SES-22, Hakuto R, Amazonas Nexus, CRS-27, bunch more Starlinks in between, but we also had Bandwagon 1 and GSAT-20. So this is a pretty storied booster tonight.
Yeah, this thing has carried a lot of mass to orbit, and it looks like it's going straight east out of the Cape tonight, right?
That is correct. We are going due east tonight. And for folks who may be in Florida along the eastern coast and possibly even Tampa, if you step outside tonight and your skies are as clear as mine are, you should be able to see this launch.
We should have some great shots of this, even though it is dark. We've got everybody at the press site. And I know we've got a special viewer, what did you say, 170 miles south of here. So we should see it about a minute, maybe a minute 20 after launch. We'll see what they come up with later after we get this rocket off the ground. It is going due east. It's carrying about 5 metric tons. And I do want to talk a little bit about this payload. So let's jump over a viewer. Yes, Sawyer. Let's jump over EJ. I know you were just talking to him for a couple of hours. He jumped in and said, I'm going to do some things. Let's talk about this payload. Thuraya. It's a cool name.
Yeah, that's actually the Arabic name for the Pleiades constellation. Thuraya 4 is part of a constellation that is from an operator that comes out of the UAE. Here, there were other Thuraya satellites prior to this one, but Thuraya 4 is actually completely different than those other satellites. It's on a Eurostar-Neo sat bus, which is Airbus. That's Airbus's big sat bus. Now, this satellite is it has a scalable power system from 7 to 24 kilowatts, and it can be anywhere. It's highly configurable. Most of the satellite buses are, but this one is highly configurable. You can put whatever you want on it. It's kind of a la carte depending on what provider, what your satellite customer wants. This one is going out to medium, if I'm remembering correctly here.
Geostationary transfer.
It's geostationary transfer. Oh
Yep,
yeah, okay.
yep.
That's right. I was getting it a little confused with the Blue Origin mission that should be happening a little bit later, a couple of days from now, because we were talking about it. Sorry, I was just fixating on that New Glenn, which is not far from here, but that's not what we're here for. F and 13G mission. Those were also Eurostar-Neo. So Falcon 9 has launched this type of payload before.
Yeah. Yeah, and they call it the fourth one, but aren't there only 2 that are operational?
Yes, I do believe Thuraya 1 is not, or no, 2 I think is not working.
This
anymore.
one is This one's replacing 2. I think 1 also had some issues with the, if memory serves, the solar panels. There were some issues with the solar panels, so they put it in like a dead orbit or something. I don't have the information in front of me, but I think it was 1, and then this one is replacing 2. So this will give them 3 and 4 up there doing what they do. And yeah, it covers like 160 countries, and I mean it's a pretty big deal. But it's a 5 metric ton payload.
Yep, that's
going
12,000 pounds. Yep, for geostationary transfer, that's 12,000 pounds. I'm actually looking it up now. Thuraya 2 and 3 are BSS 702s. Those are Boeing's satellite bus. And this one is Eurostar. This is Eurostar-Neo. This is an Airbus satellite, interestingly enough. I mean, I don't want to read too much into that, but there you go. This one is replacing Thuraya 2.
Yeah. And this booster, Julie, I'm going to bring you back in. This booster 1073 is launching for this is on its 20th flight. This was a 46-day turnaround? Is that right?
Yep. Yeah. Yep. It looks like it was a 46-day turnaround. Sometimes when you reach 20 flights, they kind of poke around a little bit more than younger boosters, shall we say, just to make sure that everything's still well, because it is of an age, shall we say. And being on a drone ship and at violent speeds aren't things like joints. So got me a little bit more inspecting, but
And as we said,
looking to have an even. Well, I was gonna say, with them having an even faster cadence this year, that turnaround time is gonna start closing down again to that maybe 2-week mark.
Yeah. And that'll be good to see the cadence ramp up. They're shooting for like 100 and what was it, 54 this year? I'm making a number up. EJ, how many were they shooting for this year? Falcon 9s? Less than 180, right? Thanks,
Elon
Al.
confirmed on X that he wants more than 180 this year. Now, whether they hit that or not, that remains to be seen. But
Ooh.
I'll tell you what, they okay, if you wanted 180 plus, right, that is launching basically every day. And I don't know if you guys have looked at the calendar and looked at the date. It's the 3rd, and we haven't even gotten a launch yet. That is already behind. Not to say that they wouldn't do it, right? It's not some type of linear thing. They can launch more Falcon 9s or less, but this is the first launch already happening on the 3rd. The kind of cadence that you need to handle 180 launches that's sub 2-day launch cadence. So that means one needs to go every 48 hours. We're already past that, so we'll see how it pans out. I mean, I'm here for it, Gene. I don't know about you. The more rocket launches, the better.
That's right. I'm here, brother. Speaking of that, let's go over some stats. Again, like I said, this is the first launch of the year for 2025. It's also, strangely enough, the first launch of the month here in January. Falcon's 65th launch since the last failure. And if this one goes, this will be the 417th. Or Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, this will be the 418th. I never know what these numbers mean, but 417th orbital flight for Falcon 9. SpaceX's 225th launch from this launch pad. These numbers start to get crazy for me. If this one goes, this will be the 92nd landing on a Shortfall of Gravitas out of 93 attempts. And then if this lands, which we hope it does, it'll be the 50th successful landing since the last failed one. I would be remiss if I did not thank some folks and also encourage folks. If you want to hear EJ answer a lot of questions, be sure to get those in chat at NASA Spaceflight. And thank you so much, Ethereal Swordsman, for a $5 tip. We appreciate it. We do this because we love it. And you helping us out just makes it all the more possible. I mean, look at the coverage tonight with Flame Trench, This Week in Space Flight, and now Falcon 9, the first Falcon 9 launch 2025. And next week's gearing up to be even crazier. So just stay with NSF. We've got you. We've got you covered. Get those questions in at NASA Spaceflight. We'll get to them as much as we can. I did want to say, you're looking at Slick 40, right? We are T-minus 46 minutes for this Thuraya 4 launch. Right now, they're getting things ready for the ground support equipment. EJ, I'm going to bring you in on this one. They're getting things ready for the ground support equipment, and then we're all waiting for a specific 20-minute vent. So right now, in the next 26 minutes, as we're looking for that, tell us what's going on with the Falcon 9 at the T-minus 46 minutes mark.
Okay, so basically what they're doing right now, the short story is that they're starting to move propellants they're starting to move the propellants around to get ready to put it into the rocket. Now I know it's like, what are you preparing? You're always preparing. Just go. No. Just go doesn't get you very far with rockets. You have to thermally condition these lines. Now, Falcon 9 is using kerosene and liquid oxygen. Well, I say kerosene. It's RP1. It's a highly refined version of kerosene. In my brain, that just stuck as kerosene, which is not right, and I understand that. But the point is that the RP1 is basically just, fuel, right? But they're using liquid oxygen for their oxidizer, and SpaceX uses a densified form of liquid oxygen, which means that it is a lot colder than regular liquid oxygen. This is advanced liquid oxygen. No, they've chilled it. They are super chilling their liquid oxygen. Basically, what happens when you try to go to flow that around through a pipe, right? It really likes to boil. It likes to evaporate. It's not, Julia did say it's a little brisk down in Florida a little bit earlier, but it's probably like 10 to 15 C in Florida. Liquid oxygen is minus 180 C. It is really, we're talking a big temperature differential. And when you do that, you got to move the propellants around slowly so they don't evaporate too fast. So right now they're probably moving the propellants around basically to get it to the pad, and then at T-minus 20 minutes, they'll start moving up the transporter erector, and that's what that vent is about that you were talking about. The 20-minute vent is SpaceX moving commodities up the liquid oxygen, up that transporter erector to fuel the second stage. The first stage is fueled from the bottom on the pad, but the second stage, you need a fuel and an oxidizer line to get up there. So right now, SpaceX is going through all the checks, and then they're moving the propellants around to get ready to start initiate filling for Falcon 9. But that, once again, guys, that won't happen for another about 23 minutes in change.
And then once they do that, that's like you said, that's the second stage.
Yeah,
right.
That 20-minute vent on the transporter erector is for moving propellants into the second stage. The first stage is fueled through a tail service mast umbilical. That's actually it's out of sight in this picture. You can't see it because it's at the bottom of the pad. But yeah, that's what that 20-minute vent is for. That also, Gene, you kind of touched base on it a little bit. That's also there. That's it's there to fill up the second stage, but it's a pretty darn good indicator to know if we're going to get a launch or not. You can never tell, right, until the official SpaceX cast goes live, but we don't want to see that. We want to sit here and chill with us, right? You never know, right? 20-minute vent is a good indicator that we're going to see some flight tonight, which is good.
Yep, and that's what we're looking for is another launch, the first one in 2025. So for those of you just joining us, you're looking at Space Launch Complex 40 and a Falcon 9 ready to go on its 20th launch. I want to thank some folks here. Antonio Ballatore, thank you so much for becoming a PadRap member. It's awesome that you're here with us, and we appreciate it. And Cooley, thank you so much for that super chat, 20 check something. And I don't know what's the currency for the Czech Republic. Anyone? EJ, you're the sum total of Google knowledge.
Oh, is that a compliment?
I don't know. Thank you so much, Cooley, for that. I appreciate it.
Are they using euros?
I don't know what they're using in the Czech Republic. Somebody in chat will tell me in 2 seconds. They're like carrots. I don't know. They'll figure it out. Okay, here's a 2024 question for you. How many Falcon 9 launches? It's coming in from Jason. Did SpaceX get in 2024? I know they had a goal of, what was it, 150? They got
134. One short of total missions for the entire shuttle program over the course of 30 years.
Wow.
I don't know how to feel about that as a shuttle guy. I don't know how to feel about that, Gene.
Alex is hooking us up. 132 Falcon launches in 2024, Falcon 9, 2 Falcon Heavy, and 4 Starship launches. It's humbling to be surrounded by people that are smarter than me. I'm talking about you, EJ, Sawyer, Alex, Adrian. I thought I knew a lot, and then I started talking to these guys. Trust me. Also, I believe they use the koruna in the Czech Republic. I don't know. Don't quote me on that one. Keep the questions coming in, guys, for EJ. So we had some. We're gonna keep talking here a little bit. We're gonna kind of shift gears as we go along, and we are going to talk about the satellite itself a little bit more. We'll talk about the trajectory. We'll talk about the weather. We'll talk about all that stuff coming up. But I did want to touch on while we've got a little bit of time here, about 20 minutes. EJ, some of the news that's coming out for, obviously, New Glenn is down in Florida, getting ready for their stuff, and then Starship out in Texas. And we don't have any dates, by the way. If this is your first NSF video of the day, which I hope it's not, you've heard us all say we don't know when. We don't know when any of these things are going to. There's no official launch dates for either one of those rockets. Now, on the Flame Trench earlier today, you guys spent a lot of time talking about New Glenn. So give us the 5-minute version or the 10-minute version of where New Glenn is, because we saw the static fire, and now we're waiting for some more news about that.
As far as I can tell, New Glenn is moved to the 8th. It was supposed to be on Monday, and now it's moved to the 8th, but it's the 8th at 1 a.m. Eastern time.
Yay.
So, for us night owls, that's Tuesday night, right? Or if you're on the West
time
Coast.
for a rocket launch.
Oh yeah, no, it's great.
Why do they do that to us?
Just mess up my sleep schedule even more. Appreciate it, Jeff. No, I'm just kidding. I'll be here for a launch like that, right? Seeing that thing go is going to be crazy. Over on my end, on the Twitch stream that I do, we call it basically reusable Saturn 1B. That is so the thing behind that is that New Glenn lands on its on the landing platform vessel. It lands on the
Mhm.
vessel named Jacqueline, right? But its payload mass to orbit and size is, I mean, it's a little bit taller, but it's about a similar kind of width as a Saturn 1B and about similar payload mass, which is crazy. Like we just got,
Seven
yeah,
7
7
meters
meters.
and then
Oh,
flares to 8.5 at the landing
crazy.
legs, right?
I mean, it's not a
Yeah.
small rocket,
Right.
and this is just more good access to space. It is a monster, and I'm gonna be here for it. I was about to say, oh, it could launch at 1 in the morning. It is launching at 1 in the morning, and I'm gonna be here for it,
Yeah.
man.
I would love to be there too. I just need to know when, right?
Right?
Doing rocket launches is hard to plan. You can't plan anything because of the
Yep.
tolerances. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that one going. And this is going to be a crazy year with New Glenn. And I mean, I know they pushed SLS, but there's going to be SLS News, HLS, Starship, more Falcon 9, more Falcon Heavy. I mean, the cadences are ramping up and more players are coming on the marketplace. I mean, when we start talking about all the other launch providers, I mean, coming in, we're going to be real busy, EJ. Let me just tell you that we're going to be real busy. 2025, I think, is the start of it.
Good dates, man.
So they're pushing that one obviously now to the 8th potentially. We'll see what happens there. They know why, we don't, and we don't know even if that is a hard date because we don't have anything official. And I want to say that again, we don't have anything official. So if someone says they hear something official and you didn't hear it from NSF, just hear it from NSF. Trust me. And then we got Starship Flight 7, which is going to be kicking off. We don't know when, but it's coming.
Mhm. Tentatively, Gene, it looks like Friday, but looks like Friday doesn't mean anything in space flight, as you know,
That's right.
because
That's
that
right.
means nothing. You know.
Yeah, and we'll be bringing you that one too with great coverage as always. And like the NSF team is running all over. We're trying to plan everything. We're running crazy, like with our hair on fire, trying to make sure we get the coverage of all of these and continue to bring you these amazing Falcon 9 launches and landings when we can. So let's see. Extreme Poppy, Doopy. Sorry, Extreme Doopy. Thank you so much for that. It's $5 Canadian super chat. Happy New Year from Canada. Happy New Year to you, my friend. Thank you for joining us on this first launch of 2025. Stuart King, thank you again. Amazing. $20 super chat. Thank you very much. Quick question, then we're going to go to some timelines here. What are the predictions for New Glenn? We just talked about that. Will it take business away from SpaceX? Yeah, but I think there's enough. What do you think, EJ? I think the pie's big enough for more launch providers? I think so.
This is Gene. It's a real chicken and the egg thing here because
Mm-hmm.
we have all these rockets, and a lot of people ask questions like, how many payloads are these things going to launch? Like, where's the demand for payload? Why'd you make such a big rocket? Where's the demand for it? Right now, the thing is that manufacturing the payloads is a long lead item when you go to launch something into space. The payloads are complicated pieces of equipment, but that pales in comparison to the vehicle that it launches. So I really think that, SpaceX rolling out with Starship, Blue Origin rolling out with New Glenn is, the chicken came first and not the egg. These big rockets are going to offer a more affordable access to space because,
Mm-hmm.
Blue Origin has deep pockets and SpaceX has deep pockets, and they were able to engineer a vehicle that could get us. They are able to engineer vehicles that are reliable enough to be able to grow the market. So there might not be a market demand right now, but that doesn't mean that there isn't going to be one in the future. I very much think that that's what they're anticipating here.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the pie is big enough for everyone with Rocket Lab coming in, the launch providers from all over. Look, we're doing these interviews. Alex is doing these interviews with launch providers in Europe. I mean, the pie is big enough. There's plenty of satellites that need to go up into space. Let's bring up the timeline. We just passed T minus 35 minutes. And as we look down the timeline, the stage 1 RP1 load begins, and I want to ask you a question, EJ. Like, are they flowing? They're flowing these cryogenic propellants in at the same time. The two different tanks.
So
They don't do one then the other, right?
okay, so Falcon 9 is semi-cryogenic, so we have liquid oxygen in RP1. The RP1 is not cryogenic, so
Oh, right. Yeah, it's kerosene. Sorry, yeah.
exactly. No, all good, man, all good. I just want to make sure we don't confuse anybody out there. So
Thank you.
what they do is they start first stage flow first. Okay.
Mhm.
The reason why, well, okay, it's a bigger liquid oxygen tank. The first stage is, I don't know if you could tell from the screen here, chat, the stage is the first stage is a little bit bigger than the second stage. First stage goes from the ground to that darker ring that's about 2/3 of the way up the vehicle, right? So you're going to get that LOX load first because it's a bigger tank. And then they're going to start stage 2, RP1 load. And because of the super chilled propellants that I was talking to you about, they're not going to initiate second stage flow until about 20 minutes, like we said, right? The reason why is because they're trying to time it so both tanks get filled at the exact same time. You want your second stage to be topped off at the exact point your first stage gets topped off, and then you're ready to go. Once again, it's because of this densified liquid oxygen here. The densified liquid oxygen will boil off very, very quickly. Florida is not cold, guys. I don't know if you guys have ever been there. It's generally not cold down there. It might be a little cold for Floridians, but it's not cold, and it's heating up that liquid oxygen. The more time that liquid oxygen stays inside of that tank, the more it's going to boil off, and it's going to want to turn to gas, right? And you can't put the gas in a liquid fuel rocket engine. It's right in the name.
Exactly. Let's see. Tweet first. Not sure what that means. Jay, tell me what that means. We're bringing up a tweet. Here we go. SpaceX. T-minus 35 minutes. Weather's looking good. Yeah. Okay. Straight from SpaceX. There you go. Things are looking favorable for this launch of this Falcon 9. That's awesome news. And by the way, you bring up this, but look at this image. I want to show a picture of what NSF teams in the field do and what they set up and what that looks like. Here's the actual shot from behind the scenes. Is that Max? Yeah, I think that's Max. So they're out there. He says it's cold, guys. And it's cold, but this is kind of a behind the scenes of what you get. You don't normally get to see this stuff. So I wanted to make sure that the folks in the field get their kudos and get their handshakes, because I'm not out there. EJ's not out there. Julia, Max, and Dee are out there with their coats on, bringing this coverage, bringing this stuff to you. So be sure to thank them by checking out their photos, and the calendars just came out. Go to shop.nasaspaceflight.com, and a way that you can thank these guys for going out there in the cold and making sure these cameras are all set up for you is by going to shop.nasaspaceflight.com. Check out their art, the photos that they've taken. I have a giant one from DY's. The next time I see them, I'm going to have them sign it. They know it's coming. I've already told them I'm taking it to Starbase for Flight 7. We're going to have that. We're going to have that signed. Then I'm going to put that on my wall. But again, these are the guys doing the work. And also Jay and the other operators in the production booth. You don't get to see them. You don't get to hear them a lot. You hear Kevin sometimes, but most of the rest of them, you don't really get to hear a lot. They're behind the scenes doing this for us. So I just wanted you guys to know that. Jean-Luc Silas, thank you so much for that Canadian super chat. $5 goes a long way to do what we do. And Ethereal Swordsman, another $10 tip. Wow, you're super generous tonight. Thank you so much. And again, exactly what I was talking about. Ethereal Swordsman wants to extend a thank you to the chat moderators. A lot of folks behind the scenes, just kind of handling everything, making sure that, Nightbot's doing what it's supposed to do. But thank you guys so much for your support. And remember, keep those questions coming in at NASA Spaceflight. We appreciate it. T-minus 30 minutes for this first launch of 2025. Julia, do we have you back now?
Well,
I believe we
Gene,
have Julia back. Hey!
how do I sound? Hey,
There's Julia.
I
She
had to
sounds
move,
great.
y'all. It's a very busy night here on the Space Coast, and a lot of people are out watching this launch, and this girl had to move so she could have some signal all to herself. So I'm back now.
It happens. It sounds so
I had
much
to
better.
really, really move. Our parks are packed right now, and that's a good thing.
Well, we actually had one of the questions earlier on the Flame Trench. I was watching the Flame Trench. These guys were talking about where to go and look for where can you go to see these launches. And I know there's videos on NSF. You could go to YouTube channel, check out where to go, where to see a Starbase launch, where to see a Space Coast launch. And you know all the good spots, don't you, Julia?
Oh, I do. I'm in a nice quiet spot right now with a marina view. I like it. Don't get me wrong. If you all ever see me out on the Space Coast, I'm usually somewhere along US 1 for most night launches. Feel free to say hello. Sometimes I do go out in the crowd. It just depends how good the cell signal is that day, but I'm happy to chat with you in between moments on stream.
And you guys can see on the picture on the screen there at the bottom, that white, it's almost like a smoke coming off the not the very bottom, but the bottom of the black part. That's the booster. You can see that rising up. That's the frost. And Julia, I know you can see that out there. It's going to be rising all the way up as they fill that booster up. And then at T-minus 20 minutes, we should start seeing the vent coming from the tower. Julia, you mentioned earlier that this booster's flown for 19 times, and it's flown to the International Space Station a couple of times, I think, but it's lifted a lot of mass to orbit, this booster.
It has. It has actually only had one trip, CRS-27, to the space station, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, shall we say, customer missions, and then many, many Starlinks to orbit.
Oh, you're right. You're right. They get, as soon as you say something, they jump all over you. You're right. The booster doesn't go to the ISS. The second stage launches the payload. Yeah, no, that was me. That was my fault. Kevin got all over me with us. He stuck his tongue out. So you're right. Got to correct the host every now and then. For those of you just joining us, what you're looking at is Space Launch Complex 40 down in Florida on a clear, cool night. Is there any weather to report other than it's a little chilly, Julia?
Well, Gene, let me clarify what chilly is for the folks out there. For Floridians, currently in Titusville, it is 51 degrees. That means the team that's a little bit farther out on the Cape, closer to the Atlantic, believe it or not, y'all, they are bundled up in sweatshirts and jackets, while me on the coast of the lagoon, I am more than content in my sweatshirt. You will be able to indicate wind speed by how the frost falls or the vent falls at the T-minus 20-minute vent. It is a very still night where I am right now, which means that vent should be kind of dramatic and then just kind of hang in the air. So I'm looking forward to seeing that, because T-minus 20 means we're getting really close to launch.
So we've got the weather up there. Jay, you want to bring up the other one? Let's see the forecasted. There we go. Yeah, looks good. 24-hour delay, less than 5%. Probability of violating weather constraints. We talked earlier today, if you're watching some of the other NSF streams, about the tolerances of these rockets. And, they have temperature tolerances. They have wind tolerances, right? EJ, I'm going to bring you back in on this conversation.
Yep.
About, we see them launch through clouds. We see them launch in the rain, but they do have these flight tolerances like anything else. And if we violate those, either downrange at the landing zone or here at the launch site, but this looks fine. This looks good. We're ready to go.
Yeah, it looks like the winds are coming out of the northwest. On the ground, it should be it says 18 to 26 miles an hour. Temperature is 55% humidity. That's actually super low humidity for Florida, but we got visibility out to 7 miles. One of the tolerances here, Gene, for these rockets is wind shear. And if you could look at the additional risk criteria on the top right, you see that the upper level wind shear is low. Those winds coming out of the northwest, so it's 310 on the compass. It says it right there, liftoff winds. They basically are coming out of the northwest all the way up to about 30,000 feet. one of the big things with this is wind, and it's not just, oh, it's windy, we can't launch. It's wind that could go in different directions at different altitudes. So if your wind velocity changes and the heading of the wind, where the wind's coming from, changes at different altitudes, and the change is too great, that would basically constrain your launch criteria a little bit.
Mhm.
That's what that upper level wind shear is. It's not wind shear like, oh, the wind's blowing from the south, right? And the rocket is launching east, so the wind shear is too good. No, it's the change in wind shear going up that you got to worry about. But as you can see from the tile or from the card that we just showed there, it's low. It's basically coming out of the northwest all the way up to 30,000 feet, from what I can tell.
We're good to go. I mean, yeah, that weather looks great. We've seen worse.
Oh, yeah.
We push off, but just about 3.5 more minutes, we should start seeing that vent from for the upper stage. I'm trying to look for a really nice Falcon 9 question. Everybody wants you to talk like Zoidberg. I think we've run that gambit. I don't know if we want to do that or not, but I do want to thank a couple of folks. Telstar86, thank you so much, gifting that Red Team membership. And if you are the recipient of those, be sure to say thank you in the chat. It's a really nice thing. You can see that frost line still building up that booster. Thank you for gifting that. Bob Smith, thank you. $5 super chat. Just $5 so that Max and D can have a tent. Maybe a little chocolate hot cocoa out there, guys. Where's the picture of them bundled up? Jay, do you have the They need some hot cocoa, maybe a tent.
Hot chocolate sounds really nice right now. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, have a little space heater. Thank you very much for that super chat, Bob. We appreciate it. And then Bob Fillmore, thank you very much. They're showing the pictures. 5 Red Team memberships. Thank you guys so much for your support. And again, I can't tell you enough how appreciative everybody here is. We talk about it all the time, that we do this because we're space nerds. We love watching rockets launch and now land. And we get to travel and do it. And it's just a lot of people pour themselves into this, like the folks out there in the field, like the folks in the production room, like us doing the commentary. We do it because we love it. It's just a thing we love. So every time you hit that thumbs up button, every time somebody gifts a membership or becomes a member of NSF or L3, it's just amazing. Go to the website, L2. It's awesome. I said L3. I don't know where that came from. It's L2. I don't know where L3 came from. It's the next level, whatever.
You want to take it to the next level, man. It's fair.
He's going to get on me. He's going to say, now you have to create that, Gene. Okay, whatever. And sending in your questions and everything. We truly, truly appreciate all of the support that you guys give us. Coming up on, let's see, what are we? T-minus 21 minutes. I'm really looking for those good Falcon 9. I know we've got EJ, who's a Falcon 9, the guy. And I'm trying to find those good questions. Someone says they want to hear Kevin more. I don't know. EJ, what do you think? Yeah,
as long as he doesn't talk about Ship 26, I'm good.
Ooh, Falcon 9 launches from Kodiak. Ooh, that's a good question. You're not going to answer it in the next 30 seconds, though, are you?
Do you want me to? No, probably not. There's no reason to do
probably
that.
not.
Vandenberg exists.
Yeah. Speaking of Vandenberg, we're supposed to have a whole lot more launches, aren't we? Whole lot more launches in 2025. And,
I really hope so.
Yeah. Why is that, Julie? You got about 10 seconds.
Because their landing zone is a lot closer than ours, so hopefully they ramp up and they can turn boosters around faster. There you go.
Awesome. Well, we see that gas. We see those gases escaping. That's our 20-minute vent, and we are going to just welcome all the folks that are joining us tonight. I'm Gene Rowley, your host from NSF, and we are here looking at Space Launch Complex 40 in anticipation of the Thuraya 4 launch, NGS, Next Generation Satellite. We are less than 20 minutes away from the launch of this Falcon 9. And joining me tonight for commentary is EJ. EJ, thanks for coming in. Going to be talking about this rocket and the payload a little bit more. You're good tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Out in the field, we've got them bundled up out there. We have D and Max. They're out there bringing you these shots that you're seeing right now on your screen. And also Julia. Julia is off-site. She's going to talk to us about this booster here in just a little bit. Julia, you still good?
I'm still fabulous.
Got it. Got your heater on. Okay. And then producing for us is Jay Keegan. And as you see on the screen, we've got the timeline up now. Now, this is the 20-minute vent. We talk about it. It's the LOX chill down. EJ, tell us exactly what's happening right now.
Okay. So what you see in center of your screen here, you're looking at Slick 40 or Space Launch Complex 40. Slick is the kind of slang term for it there. But you see a white cloud. That's a white cloud of condensation it's a cloud of condensation coming out. It's actually gaseous oxygen, if we're going to be, really technical. And I know you guys like that, so that's what we're going to go with. What you're seeing there is the transporter erector, which is the gray structure. It's kind of difficult to see in this shot. It's the gray structure that's just next to Falcon 9. It's just off to the right. The transporter erector contains the second stage liquid oxygen and RP-1 fuel lines, amongst other things. It's also used to transport and erect the rocket up. I know, engineers, great at naming things. That vent right there is basically SpaceX chilling down the liquid oxygen line, to be very specific. They're chilling down the liquid oxygen line to make sure that it's at the optimal temperature to flow liquid oxygen into the vehicle. And what happens is you got to cool that pipe. The pipe that goes up the side of the transporter erector, it needs to be nice and cold. If you try to take super chilled liquid oxygen and move it through a pipe that's at ambient temperatures. Now, I know Julia and Max and Dee said they are cold, but they're not liquid oxygen cold in Florida tonight, I don't think. I mean, could be, probably not. So what they have is a vent at the top of the where the fueling umbilical goes into Falcon 9's second stage. There's a vent, and you see them venting gaseous oxygen out because they're flowing liquid oxygen up the pipe, and it's actually evaporating because it's cooling down the pipe. Once the pipe gets to the right temperature, then we should be good for fueling operations, which should happen relatively soon.
And this booster 1073 is going due east out of the Cape. It's going to be flying out there to the after stage separation. You'll see it here. And Julia, I'm going to bring you in on this one. Out there bobbing in the Atlantic is a shortfall of Gravitas, right?
That is correct. Bobbing in the Atlantic, due east, about 600 kilometers offshore. Yeah. And they're ready to catch a booster. Yeah.
So folks can see the launch from, pretty much anywhere. If you look at Florida, we've got like Sawyer is about 170 miles south of the launch site, and he's saying that he can see it, a minute or so after launch. I mean, so anybody along the coast can pretty much see it, right?
Yep, you bet. If you are up and down the east coast of Florida, just look either north or south, depending on where you are. If you are in Tampa, you may even be able to see it. And added bonus, stay outside a little bit longer, because with the clear skies, you should be able to see the reentry burn as well.
Oh, wow. That's awesome as it comes in through the atmosphere and lands on a shortfall of Gravitas. Now, talk to me a little about, and this is one of the things, I mean, we see the boosters when they come back, but when the booster lands on the drone ship, what happens there? Like, what exactly happens?
What happens there? Well, hopefully we have a happy landing, right? And then
Right.
the booster, goes into safing mode. The first thing you'll actually see after it lands, depending on the drone ship, would be like a water deluge to protect the deck, right? Coming in hot. But after that, things we don't see on camera would be the octograbber coming out from the garage to secure the booster to the deck, and then they hook back up to that drone ship and tow it back in. It takes about 2.5 days to come back, and then they offload, turn around, and go back out and do it again.
And watching that come into the port's actually kind of neat when you see the NSF, I think it's fleet cam, is that the one we call it, when it's seeing all of the boosters there. So tonight, with the clear skies, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be able to see the launch, and then after stage separation, we're going to potentially be able to see the re-entry as it comes down range. I'm going to switch to the second stage, and after stage separation, EJ, this is going to a geostationary transfer orbit. And then the payload. Tell us about a geostationary transfer orbit when the payload is deployed. Like, what happens to the second stage after separation?
Okay. This is going to be a little bit of a nerdy response, guys, and it's
Yay!
and it might be a little bit on the lengthy side. I'll try to keep this as brief as I possibly can. So, a geostationary transfer orbit is a type of orbit that Falcon 9 shoots payloads that are going to geostationary orbit. Now, what's a geostationary orbit? Why do we use it? A geostationary orbit is a type of orbit where the satellite's orbital period, or the time it takes to do one rotation, is synchronized with Earth's rotation. So the satellite seems to hover over a certain area. Okay? The transfer orbit is going to get you out to geo, right? So the transfer orbit is kind of halfway between low Earth orbit and geostationary orbit. A low Earth orbit would look very circular in nature. Depends on orbital eccentricity for the nerds, you know what I mean. And geostationary orbits are very circular as well. So what this transfer orbit looks like, if you were going to visualize it, it looks like an ellipse. It looks like a big oval with going around the Earth. One side of the oval is very close to Earth in low Earth orbit, and the other side is really, really high up in geostationary orbit. The low Earth orbit part would have an apogee. It depends on different geostationary transfer orbits, right? But it would have an apogee probably around 120 miles or about 170 kilometers. Well, the apogee or highest point in your orbit on this transfer orbit is going to be at geo, which is about 23,000 miles straight up, or about 38,000 kilometers up. So this transfer orbit is going to, Falcon 9 is going to put this thing into the transfer orbit. It's going to separate the satellite, and the satellite will coast out to that apogee that's up at 23,000 miles, and the satellite will actually fire its engines and circularize out there. Now, what does that have to do with the second stage? What happens to this second stage? Does it get out to geo? Well, yeah, it does for a second, but if you remember, I said the perigee, or lowest point in this orbit, is at about 200 kilometers and change, or at least it should be, guys. The SpaceX flies different trajectories all the time. The point is that the perigee of this orbit is enough to skirt the atmosphere. So the second stage, after it throws it into this transfer orbit, every time it does one rotation in this transfer orbit, with the lowest point basically skirting the atmosphere and the highest point out at geo, it's going to lower it. It's going to hit the atmosphere. It's going to dip into the atmosphere and dip into the atmosphere and dip into the atmosphere. It's a phenomenon called aerobraking. And aerobraking eventually will move your apogee down further and further and further. If you slow down at perigee, right, your orbit apogee is going to go down, and it will eventually burn up, but it's just going to take some time. Just like this explanation. All right.
You almost got the clock.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I gotta speed it up. Yes.
No, you don't. No, you don't. That's the good stuff. That's that's the stuff that we who don't know that come to NSF to get that right there. So thank you for that. And while we're talking about orbits, let's talk about this payload for a minute. Tell us again about the Thuraya next generation satellite. There you see it on your screens. The Thuraya 4. Tell us more about that, EJ.
So Thuraya 4 is on a Airbus Eurostar-Neo sat bus. It's a sat bus that dates back into the 90s. The Neo platform is very, 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 very successful. That type of satellite is specific. A sat bus is basically a chassis for a satellite that's designed for geostationary operations. Airbus has been just upgrading it over time, like they'd upgrade a commercial airliner over time, right? Thuraya 4 is replacing, we figured this out actually earlier, Gene, it's replacing Thuraya 2, which is a Boeing satellite. Now, that's not because the Boeing satellite had anything wrong with it. It's just old. These satellites have a shelf life. The reason why is when you're out in geostationary orbit, you're still having perturbing forces. Basically, every time the moon gets near the satellite, it's going to pull it in a different direction. So the satellites have thrusters on them to keep them aligned over where they need to be. This satellite is just merely replacing Thuraya 2, which basically is going to be retired soon because it's almost out of fuel. You don't want the satellite to run out of fuel in the orbit in GEO. That's actually a space environmental mitigation technique. You know, you use the last bit of fuel to push the satellite to what's called a graveyard orbit, and then eventually Thuraya 4 will replace it in that slot. Now, what does that slot mean? Geostationary satellites have slots. That slot is correlated to longitude. So this one I do believe is going somewhere over Asia. So we're looking at probably. I'm taking a guess here, guys. I'd have to. Somebody will correct me. I think it's 50 degrees west. I think that could be wrong. It probably is. But yeah, the slots are correlated to longitude, and you have to. If you have a satellite that's near its end of life, you have to vacate the slot so another satellite can take its place.
So with these graveyard orbits, I know sometimes it's touchy, but they do burn up in time, and they have enough drag over time. They're going to come back in.
Well, okay. So with the stage, yes. With the satellites, no, they're never coming down unless we go and get them. You got to remember, these graveyard orbits have an apogee or apogee and perigee above 23,500 miles. So that's 38,000 kilometers up for the kilometer people, for the non-moon unit people. They use feet and miles. No, I'm just kidding. All right, I'm not trying to start that here. It is funny though. They actually move it past GEO, so it's higher. They use the last bit of fuel to actually push it out of GEO, and wherever it goes from there, I don't know. There is a lot of satellites in those graveyard orbits. Also, if there are other launch providers that send the upper stage, and Falcon does this from time to time, that sends the entire stage to GEO. And when you send the entire stage to GEO, you have to get the stage to a graveyard orbit too. There is many a Centaur stages up there from other launch providers, and many a Falcon 9 stages up there that are past GEO. And then once it's past GEO, they're like, all right, whatever, fine. But that does help keep the geostationary slots clean, so you can replace satellites. And so satellites, I mean, amongst other things, satellites don't bash into each other, or your satellite doesn't bash into an upper stage.
Yeah. So there's a lot of folks we want to thank. We're going to do that here after the launch. Don't worry. We appreciate you guys. We are going to do that. But I do want to bring Julia back in because I want to talk about this booster and these fairings a little bit more. It's booster 1073. It's launching for its 20th flight. But we didn't actually talk about the fairing recovery. Julia, talk to us about the fairing recovery after stage separation and the fairing deploy. They come screaming back in, and then what happens?
Well, those come screaming back in, and then one of our support ships, in this case, it is Bob, I believe, is about 100 kilometers farther than the drone ship. Those fairings, they come down somewhat gracefully for being the size of a school bus. Via parachute, and they splash down into the Atlantic Ocean. That support ship has a lovely crane. That crane brings both of them on deck, and they bring those back ahead of the booster. Sometimes they actually stay out and do another mission with the capability of putting 4 fairing halves on their deck. Do I know how many times these fairings have gone? No, I do not. Those are harder to track than boosters, unfortunately.
Well, I have some information. We know that and it's a courtesy of Alex, who tracks all of these things for us here at NSF. One of the booster halves has flown its 19th flight, and then the other one is 16th flight, because we can track the serial numbers, he says, and he's very happy about that. So
that's right. They recently added a way to see it if we see it on the pad. Yes, good call, Alex.
So T-minus 5 minutes. We've got some call outs from SpaceX, some prop load. So it's official. We're going to be launching this thing hopefully here in just a minute. You see a couple events. What's going on inside that rocket, EJ, right now in the last 5 minutes?
So as we get closer to the T0 here, SpaceX will keep topping up these fuel tanks basically until they're fully fueled. Once again, you want to make sure that your liquid oxygen tank on your first stage and your second stage are filled up right at the right at the same time. They both fill up at the exact same point. That point should occur probably little ways right before startup, which should be around 1 minute. But before that, you're going to get a strong back retract. The strong back will move back into a throwback position at about 89 degrees, so that's 1 degree off the rocket. The reason why they do that is because the transporter erector or strong back is holding the rocket in place. The rocket can only stand up by itself and if it's fully fueled. That's the only way that thing can structurally stand up. I know what people are going to say. Well, what about the first stage landing? Well, that first stage landing, this first stage can stand up by itself on its landing legs when it doesn't have a full tank of propellants and no upper stage and payload on top of it, right? If the rocket's going to be fully fueled, first stage, second stage, payload fairings, the only way that's going to stand up is if those fuel tanks are full. So we'll get to the strong back retract once the tanks are full, and then Falcon 9 will go into startup at T-minus 1 minute.
Now the strong back, it retracts a little bit, and then at launch, it really it rocks back away from those Merlin engines that are pushing this rocket uphill.
Exactly. Yeah, it's called a throwback. Basically, the throwback is designed to get any equipment on that transporter erector that might be, sensitive to copious amounts of fire away from the copious amounts of fire that's going to happen when Falcon 9 lifts off.
Yeah. So we're under 3 minutes now, and in mission control, they're doing what they do in mission control, and then at 1 minute, the Falcon 9 goes into what's called startup. And tell us a little bit about that in the next minute or so.
Okay, so just an additional thing here. Right before that, you're going to see them evac the propellants out of that transporter erector because you don't want your transporter erector to be on fire when the rocket goes off. You very much want the rocket to do that, right? When Falcon 9 goes into startup, basically that's when everybody's kind of hands off with the entire launch. Falcon 9's computers will control everything. And Falcon 9.exe, launch Falcon 9.exe, they're not using Windows, they use Unix for what it's worth, will start running. And that's basically when your hands off, you let the thing do its thing.
Yeah, I saw a comment earlier. They said, Falcon 9 knows where it is and where it's not all the time. Yeah.
It knows where it is, so it knows where it isn't.
It knows where it is, so it knows where it isn't.
Yep.
This booster is again launching to a geosynchronous transfer orbit. Excuse me. It's booster 1073. It was a 46-day turnaround. As we come up to that 1 minute, we should hear the call out from SpaceX that Falcon 9 is in startup in just a second, and then they'll find their final polling, and the launch director actually gives the last call out. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. The launch director will report at T-minus 30 seconds go for launch.
And again, this one's going straight east. We pulled that video. We've got some long-range video after launch, and again, the zoom in from our folks in the field.
Okay. Yeah, there we go. There's your ground gas closeout. That's the vent. So we saw the T-minus 20-minute vent, Gene. Sorry to interrupt. We saw the T-minus 20-minute vent there to get the fuel up. Now they're trying to get the residual fuel out of the lines.
Why are they doing that again?
They're doing that because having propellant in your lines, if you have a line that's pressurized and you detach it really fast, you're going to create a geysering effect. That'll shoot liquid oxygen all over the outside of your vehicle. And then there's bad. Yeah.
That's bad.
Yeah. The bottom of the vehicle could ignite that. In fact, if you look at the early SpaceX launches, it does ignite. Yeah, that's the reason why there's a throwback to get that stuff out of the way from the rocket launch.
So here we go with the first launch of 2025. We have go for launch from the launch director, Falcon 9 with booster 1073 launching for its 20th time. And we are going to have some sweet rocket audio here in just a little bit as we get ready for the first launch of 2025 in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We should see ignition and liftoff of booster 1073. Ooh, you can already start to hear it just a little bit. On its way uphill, carrying the Thuraya 4 next generation satellite. Oh, what a great view. Here comes some of that sweet audio, guys. I'm going to shut up so we can all enjoy it. that's nice. Oh, I like that. That sound never gets old.
Oh, it's great.
Gotta love it. I just gotta love it. And I'm so jealous for people along the Space Coast because right now, with the cool, clear sky, you're going to be able to see this launch and potentially that re-entry burn for this booster. I mean, gosh, Sawyer's what, 170 miles away? Amazing. And what you're seeing right now is those Merlin engines. Is that Sawyer's shot? I can't tell. That's okay. That's Sawyer's shot from 170 miles away. Wow. I'm just stunned. Everybody out there on the Space Coast gets to see an amazing rocket launch.
So,
Everybody's
Gene,
riding me because I called him a viewer. Everybody's getting on to me for that. Go ahead, EJ.
well, he is a space enthusiast, just like Ryan.
Don't
you get it.
You're going to get me in trouble, man. I thought you were my friend.
No, it's all good. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Look at that. Look at that. So what you're seeing right now is that the plume expanding as it gets up into the thinner parts of the atmosphere, and we should be coming up here pretty soon on Miko, and there it is, and then we see a stage separation, and then what you'll see is the second stage with a Merlin vacuum optimized engine, and there we go. And that booster is on its coast face toward the drone ship, a Shortfall of Gravitas. And I have a ton of people to thank for all of their support. They've been very patient, and we can watch this rocket go, and I will thank them. Protogenesis, thank you so much for that $2 super chat. They're talking to you, Max and D. They're saying thank you for being out there in the cold. Look at that, EJ. Check out that.
It's beautiful. Because of the
That's
different
awesome.
nozzle geometry of that second stage, you get a very different plume effect that you do from the first stage. It's crazy. That first stage has 9 engines, but that single Merlin vacuum engine in that second stage firing, just because the nozzle's different, is going to give you a completely different plume effect.
Very cool. There goes the fairing halves on their way back. I love these shots from SpaceX.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
Look at that.
Yep, you can see some stars in the background there.
Or were those
the ones that are
fairing
moving
halves
up?
Being lit up? Yeah.
The ones that are moving on the background really, really quickly from bottom to top, those are stars going by.
Yeah.
But you can very distinctly see 2 dots that are kind of traveling just behind that second stage. That's light reflecting off of the jettisoned payload fairings, which, as Julia mentioned, those poppies are going to come back down and land. They got parachutes on them. They'll come back down.
And then Doug picks them up, right? Or Bob. Which one is it? Julia, you said was out there? It was Doug. Doug. Now, how long is this? So this burn is going to go for a while. We don't have any shots of the booster yet. It's strange. Normally they have that reorienting and starting to come in to catch the entry burn, which you can see on your screen is coming up. Look at it. This thing is screaming right along. Oh, wow. We keep switching back and forth, and I keep getting more and more wide-eyed at the shots.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are crazy out there in the field. This is so good.
Beautiful.
I love the stars going by. It's amazing.
Yep. Yeah, the stars are a little more pronounced with this camera here. Beautiful.
It's amazing it's just amazing. Carrying a 5 metric ton payload up to its transfer orbit. So booster 1073 just launched for its 20th time, and now we're waiting. By the way, what you're seeing on your screen is the second stage still powering its way uphill, and we should see the booster do an entry burn here in just a minute or so as it comes down, and out there waiting for it is a Shortfall of Gravitas.
Yep, and as you can see here, you see a shot on board the second stage here as we come up to that entry burn, which is my favorite part. But if you guys are wondering, that nozzle, I don't know if everybody here could tell, that nozzle's a little bit warm. You could tell because it's glowing, right? And you can tell because of the way it is. That's pretty neat. No, believe it or not, that nozzle is that's how it's cooling itself. The glowing is how it's cooling itself. When you're up in the vacuum, you can't conduct heat and you can't convect heat. The only way you can get rid of heat coming from that really, really hot rocket engine is through light. It's using radiation. It's using thermal radiation, black body radiation to actually cool itself. That's how that nozzle doesn't melt. All right.
It also doesn't it run some of the propellant down into the engine bell and then back up before it goes in the combustion chamber.
That
So it cools a little bit that way as well.
So that one has a regenerative cooled gas generator. The gas generator is the exhaust from the gas generator is film cooling part of the nozzle. That's why some of the nozzle is dark and some of the nozzle is light. That one does not
just the entry burn?
Yep. There it is.
Oh, they caught it. Nice.
Perfect.
Nicely done, Max.
Supersonic retro propulsion.
Oh, you had to say it before me.
I'm sorry. That's my thing, man. That's my thing. I'm taking it.
Well, we've seen the entry burn, so now this booster is going to be coming back, and it's aiming for that drone ship, a Shortfall of Gravitas in the Atlantic. And what you'll see that speed as it comes into the thicker part of the atmosphere in the lower right-hand corner. You'll see it start to decrease, and there it goes. Those grid fins are working as it's coming into that thick part of the atmosphere. And it's going to come down and do its landing burn. And it just has just enough fuel, right, EJ? It comes just enough fuel, landing burn, landing legs, land.
Yep. Absolutely. There's only, I mean, Falcon 9 is going to have some residual when it lands because you don't want to dry fire a rocket engine. That would be very bad for it. Explosions. But yeah, it'll just have enough residual just to not get these things to all the way to the empty, all the way to the E on the fuel gauge. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And here in just a second, we should see that second stage engine shut down. And it's powering all the way up 27,000. There's Seco's second engine cut off. And we should be coming down. There is the landing burn on the left-hand side of your screen.
Grid fins are going to do some work here, coming down through the clouds here. Drone ship should be visible under the left side grid fin on your screen. There it is. Grid fin's doing some work, steering that Falcon 9 all the way back to that drone ship here. Once we have landing leg, we got landing leg deploy happening. Grid fins lock into position. We're on thrust vector control and attitude control systems only. And we got dead center. Gene, right down the pipe.
Love it. I love it. Bullseye. Booster 1070. You can hear in the background some of the SpaceX chatter. 1073 landing on a drone ship.
There you go.
I love this. It never gets old for me. And great job catching that entry burn, Max. Just really good stuff. I mean, the shots tonight from Max and D and Sawyer way down south. That was awesome. That was awesome. So now we've got a coast face here. Now, can I thank people? Jay, he yelled at me, by the way. I really want to say thank to everybody. What was that?
Gene, I just want to point
out
the moon and Venus.
Yeah.
Almost in conjunction, right next to the Merlin vacuum nozzle. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat.
You ever notice that every time we watch one of these, there's always something, right? Every time I watch a rocket launch, there's something different. Like this guy, whatever. There's always something different that happens. There's that strong back retracting. Okay. We're going to have some awesome slow-mos for you here in just a little bit, but I got a lot of people to thank and some questions particularly to get to. I'm going to go right down the list here. Daniel Riedel, thank you so much. $4.99 super chat. Here is a theoretical question, EJ. This is probably for you. When will Falcon 9 be retired in favor of a new rocket, or will there be a next generation Falcon 9?
Well, the next generation Falcon 9 is launching next week. It's called Starship.
Right.
Starship is aiming to partially. It's aiming to overcome some of the bottlenecks for being able to rapidly reuse Falcon 9. A glaring one is reusing your second stage. Falcon 9 second stages don't come back. Starship, kind of is the second stage, and it does come back. Now, what in terms of, SpaceX is working on the successor now. Does that mean Falcon's going to be retired soon? Gene, I probably 2030s. I'd say 2031, 2032, maybe somewhere around there. And it's weird to say that that number is on the horizon. I really don't like that, but also, here we are. I know off the top of my head that Falcon 9 is contracted for Department of Defense missions until 2028 at the very least. That's what's on paper. That's, there could be more coming down the pipe. And we know the ISS is going to be around until at least 2030. So I can't see Falcon 9 flying much longer after that, especially when something like Starship is operational.
Yeah. Yeah. Being out I got to get down to Florida. I want to be out in the field with Max and T and Julia and everybody else. And Julia, I want to bring you in on this because I know it's a clear night tonight. And we saw the entry burn on Max's camera. Tell me what it was like being on the side of the road and looking.
Oh, well, it was beautiful. It was like the midnight sun rising. Um, and from my perspective, when the reentry burn happened, it almost looked like it would have been an RTLS to the launch site if it were,
Oh,
a different
wow.
world. But kind of a preview in my mind of what it will look like when they start putting those landing pads at the launch sites here in the somewhat near future. So I don't know, y'all. It was a really pretty first launch of the year.
You're talking to a bunch of space nerds, and when you talk about the rockets coming back and potentially being caught in Florida, et cetera, I mean, it's going to be an amazing sight. But seeing a rocket launch at night from the locations where these off-site places to go and watch a rocket launch, we have a small taste of what that looks like from where you were tonight. And I want to show everybody what that looked like. That's amazing. Julia, talk us through this photograph.
Well, that was a Plan B shot setup. This isn't exactly where I was planning to be, but this is how I imagined the shot when I got here. Unfortunately, the picture you all are seeing is the only picture I got due to user error. So I'll have to come back here again because get this, y'all. If you have noise canceling headphones, don't have them on while you're trying to listen to your own camera because you will hear Max's camera firing off and think that yours is misfiring. I love you, Max. I love ya.
I heard them in the background. I thought that was the crackle, and I was wrong. I was about 10 seconds early. So
Yeah, no, that was Max's high-speed shutter going, and that's the exact opposite of the type of shot I was going for. So this is a preview, folks, of a shot coming soon, probably very soon for me in a future launch.
yeah, looks good. Imagine that, folks. That star, if you will, the plume of the rocket. Imagine that rising up. Great shot, Julia. Looks good. Let's
Thanks,
go back
Gene.
and thank some more folks. Lots of Red Team memberships. Bideford, thank you so much for those Red Team memberships. We appreciate it. We are going to stay, as you can see on your screen, there is a coast phase. It's not too long. We're going to get a short burn, and then we'll stay to the deploy of Thuraya 4 right here on NSF. Sideshow, Bob, thank you so much for that $5 tip. Been watching since the best Starship explosion that nobody could see. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
SN11.
I like that one. Yeah, yeah.
Been watching for some time.
It's funny when we're all tank watchers, right? If you're an original OG tank watcher, like we remember those suborbitals and the water towers can fly and Starhopper doing its. I'll never forget that first flight of Starhopper. It was awesome. A store message from Ethereal Swordsman. Thank you so much. You needed a calendar, so Ethereal Swordsman jumped out to shop.nasaspaceflight.com, grabbed a calendar, and they're awesome. And D has the cover this year for 2025. There are two, right? There are two calendars. There's a Starbase one, and there's a general spaceflight nerd calendar with amazing photographs in it. So get out there and check out those calendars. They're pretty awesome. Chef Gator, thank you so much for being a Pad Rat member. We appreciate it. Oh, and Max has the other cover of the calendar. So there you go. And by the way, let's go to support those photographers and the work they do for you. So get out there and check those out. I can't wait to get mine, put it on the wall with all the rest of my rocket nerd stuff. Let's see. Pedro Benson, thank you so much for that super chat. I was able to see clearly from Spring Hill, Florida, and you're right, my friend. It never gets old. I will watch every rocket launch. I know EJ's the same way.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. More rockets, more better, as Jeff said. Well, not as Jack. Goodness. As Jack says, he says more data, more better. It's more everything, more better.
To be fair, Jeff probably says that as well.
He's Jeff right now, and by the way, we're talking about Bezos, is probably wondering when his rocket's going to launch. He's probably walking around telling everybody, launch it, let's go. You said earlier that the pads are probably full. Getting some airspace is probably the issue.
Yep.
Caitlin Lindsay, thank you so much for the $10 tip. We appreciate it. Amazing stream tonight. Gene and EJ are engaging commentary. Well, it's mostly EJ. Let's be honest. Julia, Max, Sawyer, D in the field. Obviously, beautiful shots, and Jay operator. Everybody, look at that. Just got called out. Everybody, thank you so much, Caitlin. We do this with you. We don't do it for you. We don't do it because of you. We do this with you. You're part of the team too. And I'm going to say this name wrong. I'm going to do it on purpose. I don't know how I'm going to say this name wrong, but fine. Not Garden. Can I say that? Can I say that without getting in trouble, EJ? Thank you so much for that $20 super chat. I know it comes up. It's not.
There.
Garden. You got to pause. You got to pause. It's not Garden.
Yeah. All right. So if you get in trouble, I get in trouble too now. We're good.
Can't overstate how amazing the first launch viewing was. Thank you guys so much for everything. Re-entry burn was brilliantly clear. I could see it from 131 plainly. Wow. Left a mark on the eyeballs. That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. And again, guys, we're staying through deploy, so don't go anywhere. We've got a little bit more of the coast phase, and we've got a burn, and then we're going to stay through deploy. So get those questions in at NASA Spaceflight in the chat. Here's what it looked like from behind the scenes. Get ready. Mind blown. I love these long exposure shots. I can't see this enough.
Beautiful.
Isn't it just,
they're great.
It just blows my mind. These guys are so good. I just want to point out they're out there when it's cold, just like Julia is. They've got their little table set up. They've got their cameras. That's dedication, folks. That is dedication. Go ahead. We got another one. It changes just a little bit. It's going to clear up. Bam. Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. And now there's a lot of pad work going on over there, right, EJ? They're purging lines and they're doing this and they're getting ready and for another launch here in a couple days, I guess, if they got to get to 180.
Yeah, that transporter erector over at Slick 40 is already in the down position, and teams are going out to basically what they got to do is you have some residual fuel in the lines that go to the pad. They, got to empty those out, bring them back up to ambient temperature, put the fuel, they got to refill the liquid oxygen tanks for the next launch, which should be probably happening soon. It's trucked in for the people that care. And they bring the transporter erector down, unlatch it from the pad hydraulics that push it upright, amongst other things, and then they're going to move it right back into the Slick 40 HIF to put another rocket on.
Yeah. If they want to get to 180, this cadence is going to be crazy. And of course, we're talking about Vandy launches and so on as we get further into this year. This is going to be a lot of fun and a lot of work for everybody at NSF, and I know we are all ready for it. We talk about it constantly. We're got assets everywhere. If you hear Doss talk about it, and these guys have meetings behind the scenes, it's really amazing to watch and seeing all of the work that goes into the content that gets put out on L2 and NASAspaceflight.com and all of the YouTube content. Now it's on X. It's really amazing. Store message, can't wait to see 2025 photographs. I know, me neither. I can't wait to see them either. But you can go to and get the calendars from shop.nasaspaceflight.com. SpaceX.com. You can also check out some of their 2024 prints. And like I said, I've got these of Starship 6, the Flight Test 6. I was there. It was my first, I got to say this to be honest, it's my first rocket launch ever live was Starship Flight 6. I think I did okay, EJ. I think I did okay.
It's just fine.
I mean, it's I had the opportunity. I went, and now I'm looking forward to Flight 7 through 100, if Lord willing.
There you go.
All right. I had some questions came up earlier. We've got a couple more minutes, maybe I don't know, 6 or 8 minutes before this burn. We've got about a minute-long burn coming up, and then we're going to stay through all the way through the deployment of the satellite. There is a little bit of a coast phase after just a couple of minutes. And then we're gonna look at some slow motion video as well. But one of the questions that came up was about New Glenn, and I know you guys talked about it earlier, and I know it did its static fire. We talked about it earlier in the stream. But one of the questions that came in from I'm going to say this Baktu Egofod. I messed that up. I really did. Can New Glenn carry Gateway to lunar orbit in one piece? I don't know.
Yeah, I had that question teed up, but we didn't get time. We didn't get around to it. Certainly with payload fairing space, yeah, volume. Like speaking from a volume standpoint, you could fit that in the payload fairing. Nice. Okay, cool, sweet. Moving on. You could fit it in the payload fairing. I'm not sure if New Glenn has the Delta V to push it out there, because currently Gateway is scheduled. It's penciled in on a Falcon Heavy. Falcon Heavy can move more into space in terms of mass, not volume. New Glenn has a bigger fairing, believe it or not. I mean, there's the extended Falcon Heavy fairing for the technical people, so maybe it's comparable at some point. But I don't think New Glenn has the Delta V. I really don't think it does. I think New Glenn can move, 45 metric tons to low Earth orbit. Falcon Heavy is considerably above that. It almost could, though. It's close. It's very close.
I guess we'll see.
I mean,
I guess we're going to find out.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah. So Rupen sent a store message in. Thank you so much for going out and checking that. When we talked about the patches, some of those, there was the pre-order, and then the patches were delivered. Went ahead and ordered a second set of patches. And that goes to support their favorite YouTube channel. They call it their favorite YouTube channel and the best hosts and speakers. Keep up the good work. Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you so much, Rupen, for that support. We appreciate it. One of the questions that came in, and on your screen right now, you're seeing an onboard camera of that full-size nozzle. And there was a question that came up in the chat earlier talking about what is a stubby nozzle. EJ, why sometimes do we see the full-size nozzle on Falcon 9 second stage as we're looking at right now, and then sometimes they use like a small stubby one, and apparently nobody likes the stubby one?
I am not a fan. From a visual perspective, it looks ridiculous, but from an engineering perspective, it's actually really smart. So why use the small one over the big one? It's basically afforded to performance, right? That is the big deal. Oh, we can see the second stage chilling is happening from the vent line opening on the top side of the rocket. I'll keep this short because we're getting up to the burn. The metal that they used to make the nozzle is a rare earth metal. I'm not exactly sure what it is. I know it's something that SpaceX launches so much they basically exhaust the supply and you don't get that metal back. So some missions, they choose to run a smaller nozzle when the performance isn't needed. That smaller nozzle, it has a little bit of an efficiency hit. Your specific impulse or miles per gallon for your rocket do go down with the stubby nozzle, and you suffer a little bit of a thrust loss with the smaller nozzle. That's all. The reason why SpaceX uses the stubby nozzle is because there's not enough metal, because they make so many upper stages. There's not enough metal to make that upper stage nozzle. They're trying to save what they have to make sure they don't exhaust the supply completely.
And there was a race in the back channel for the name of that medal, and it looks like Jack won by 2 seconds.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we want to. Okay, I'm not sure. I wasn't really sure if that's known. It's niobium. It could be niobium carbide. I'm not exactly sure what the exact composition of it, but it is. It's part of it is niobium. SpaceX exhausted the dang supply of the stuff.
Nausoleum.
Nausoleum.
Nausoleum. Yeah. What you're seeing right now is they're chilling the engine.
Yep.
Why are they chilling the engine in space?
Well, believe it or not, everybody says, "Oh, space is really, really cold, Gene." It's not. It's not actually cold. It's nothing. It's nothing. That's important to understand. You can't convect heat in space. There's no way to get rid of the heat. So if you're in the sunlight, if the second stage is in the sunlight for a second, it'll actually melt.
Mm-hmm.
But how Falcon 9's engine gets rid of that heat is it glows. You can see the scorch mark on that niobium nozzle for where it was glowing before, right? Now that's how it gets rid of the heat here. But you also got to make sure that your turbine machinery, the fuel pumps, are nice and cool. You don't want those to heat up in the sunlight, because if they heat up, they're staying heated up. And if you're moving that cold liquid oxygen propellant into this motor, right, and the turbine machinery isn't at the right temperature, it'll try to turn to gas inside of your fluid impellers, inside of your fuel pump. And if you have cavitation inside of your liquid oxygen impeller, okay, so first of all, if these words mean nothing, yeah, it'll explode. That's the right way to say it, or cause a fire where you don't want it. Yep.
Rockets go boom.
Mhm.
Rockets go boom.
You could see some solid oxygen propagating off of the vent there. That's what those snowflakes are, guys. It's not actually ice. It's it's solidified oxygen.
Yeah. So we're coming up here in just a few seconds on SES2, a second engine start 2. In just 10 seconds or so, we'll see that kick up, and that's going to be about a 56-second burn, which will go to SECO 2, and we should see that ignite here in a second. You'll see it go because of the puff of the mylar. You can always know when the mylar jacket kind of puffs up a little bit. They're running fuel. Yep.
So,
and this will be about a 56-second burn to get them to the orbit that they want, and they'll call their orbital insertion after this burn. And then following this, we'll have another few minutes to talk about this launch, the payload, etc., before we get to that payload deploy. In that time, we're going to look at some replays from this amazing launch where we were able to see not only the launch from the Space Coast, but also that re-entry burn, which Max got on his camera, which is amazing. So it'll be fun to see those. So don't go anywhere. Slow-mos are coming up. We like slow rocket launches. You know, one of the things I like doing, not only watching the slow motion replays of the launches, you ever taken this is going to sound weird, EJ.
Do
you ever take the video and turn it sideways so it looks like it's flying horizontally across?
I can't say I've done that.
It's super cool. Rocket launches are cooler when they're horizontal. So there we have second engine cutoff 2. And again, we've got just a couple more minutes of a coast phase to that deployment. Shutdown nominal orbit insertion was the call out from SpaceX. So we're gonna coast with this a little bit longer until we get the payload deploy of the Thuraya 4. So let's check out some of these launch slow-mo
Hold on, guys,
videos.
before we get to that real quick. I thought I saw some lightning strikes down below the nozzle, down on Earth. You can see the lightning. You can see thunderstorms, particularly heat lightning that's in the upper atmosphere. You can definitely see it. And then, of course, they changed the camera. Oh, wait, no, they changed it back. There might be some lightning down there, but if we want to get to those replays, we can. I'm pretty sure I saw some lightning down there. Now, don't get that confused with the attitude control systems on Falcon 9's second stage. That's the pulsing that you see kind of in the foreground of the shot. Oh, there it is. There was some lightning. All right. You see it?
No, I didn't. I've never heard
missed
anybody so enthusiastic about lightning from space.
It's cool.
We gotta have that. That's good. It's lightning. You know, on the ISS, it'd be cool to kind of fly over and see all the weather and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Here we go. Let's see what we get. On the right side of your screen, of course, we're going to keep with that through this coast phase. We should be seeing And they're ready to go here. Let's go ignition. Is this a super slow-mo? There we go. This
So
is
you
from
see
Max's camera.
that transporter erector moving way
yeah.
out of the way. It doesn't. You can
Oh,
actually.
it really
see a little-
does.
Yeah, you can see a little bit of the vent, some residual pressure in that liquid oxygen line come out, but it didn't ignite, which is great.
And this is fleet cam.
This is going to be great. If you guys haven't seen a launch, it is wild stuff because watching the fleet cam here, the sky lights up.
At night, yeah.
It's amazing.
It's daytime.
Oh, I miss Florida.
That's crazy. That is. Oh, I love it. I got to move there.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, all the rocket nerds in chat are like, "Hey, we all want to move there."
Yep, we all do.
We are about 3 minutes from the deployment of that payload. Plenty of time for these slow-mo launch replays. Ah, I love it. I like how it just rises above the trees. Wait,
Waiting.
wait a second. These are not. Oh, these are real time? Why do they
Yep.
look so slow? I was calling them slow-mo videos, but that's real time.
Yeah,
Oh,
she's booking.
I look at that. You're right.
That's
It
what I
just
mean.
lights up the entire sky, doesn't it?
Becomes daytime.
Yeah, Alex calls. They're not slow-mos, they're normos.
Oh dear.
All right, here we go with the re-entry shot, right? This is Max. Oh, that was so cool. Wait,
Wild.
what? Wait. Oh, was this was that Sawyer? This was Sawyer's shot. That can't be Sawyer. Oh, it's Gage. Okay. So many camera people. I don't know them all. That's beautiful. Behind the scenes, Max and D not drinking hot chocolate. Unfortunately, we got to make that happen. That's cool. And away. Check out the shadows on the right-hand side as this thing's on its coast phase.
Yep. That's what I mean. Second you get into
Yeah.
sunlight, temperature goes up a couple 100 degrees.
And we're
In
coming
both
up
units
on
of
this.
measurement.
We're coming up on payload deploy here in just a second. But look at that.
Absolutely.
I love behind the scenes shots. Look how bright it gets. Wow.
Get behind
Well
the
done.
scenes, chat.
Get behind the scenes chat. Here we go. So this is the Thuraya 4, and it is about to deploy from the second stage into a geosynchronous transfer orbit.
Yep. So if
And,
you look
and
at
the audio you're hearing is not from this shot. This is from the launch shot from the camera.
So as we come up on deploy here, the two wires that you see on the right side of your screen are connected into your payload separator here. It's kind of like a V-band clamp, if you're familiar with those. You should see the ring kind of open a little bit, and the sat should deploy using springs. That clamp, it's basically an electronic clamp, well, electromechanical. And when they get the signal to release, there it goes. The ring opens,
Load separation confirmed.
and we get a good
And we
confirmation
heard the
of
call,
separation.
and there you can see we have a beautiful
right-
view of
Right dead center of that, you can see there's a little circular object in the center of that satellite. That's its propulsion system. That is an ion thruster. It ionizes inert gas inside of its combustion chamber to generate thrust. That's what that satellite is using for propulsion. Pretty cool. Ion thrusters, like, you know, if any Star Wars fans out there, TIE fighters, that. Now, I know what people are going to say. Wait, that exists in real life? Well, yes, it does.
It does.
No, it doesn't fly like a TIE fighter does in Star Wars. If you have a desk fan, Gene, it's probably less thrust than that thing, or more thrust.
It depends on how long you leave it running, right?
Yep.
Low ISP, long time, high thrust. Here we go. That was awesome. I loved waiting until the payload deploy, and the shots from Max and D and Gage and Sawyer, just fantastic. And EJ, thank you guys. Thank you for talking us through
absolutely
everything that happens with these Falcon 9s, and especially that payload. Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I love this stuff just as much as everybody here. I don't take it lightly being on these casts, and them giving me the good graces of coming in here and talking to you guys. And I just wanted to say thank you, everybody, for watching. Appreciate it.
It was awesome. Thank you guys so much. Jim Cabot, thank you for becoming a Red Team member. So many people behind the scenes. Max, D, Julia out in the field. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight for this launch of a Falcon 9. Jay Keegan producing. Their pictures are going to be coming. Guys, follow them on X. Follow them everywhere. 2025. We started it off with this one, and it is going to be an incredible year for space flight. And you stay with NSF, and we'll keep bringing you the coverage. We're going to roll out of here with an amazing slow-mo. Look at this, guys. I've been your host tonight. I'm Gene Rowley for NSF. Remember, dream big and keep your eyes on the stars.
And here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be normal.
Alright, 68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, roll, planet.
Water towers fly! Yes! Echo down to nominal.
Flight downside, SPD off. Bring in, SPD off. It's orange! 145! Oh my god! Oh my god! Equalize.
Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
This methane would be igniting the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? Sure. We don't need any more of these.